Hello artists! Today we're going to talk about creating a work of art using texture, but not just any kind of texture, implied texture. Implied texture is the kind of texture you create on your work of art to look like the real thing. You can't really feel this kind of texture, but artists use it all the time to trick your eye to think it's there. Another word for implied texture is simulated texture. So let's talk about the steps of this project. Step number 1, choose your animal. You can see here I chose an eagle. You're going to focus on the eye area of the animal as I did with the eagle. You will have a variety of animals to choose from at your table. Starting in the middle, lightly sketch your animal's beak or nose first. You can see how I pinched my paper at the top and bottom to find the center. Next, I added in the eyes, iris, and other details to finish the outline. Step number 3, darken or color in areas that are black, such as the pupil, nostrils, or maybe areas around the eye. Then add the animal's texture around the remaining space. It is very important to pay attention to which way the lines of the fur or feathers or texture goes on the actual picture. Step number 4, write your name and class ID on the back of your drawing. Step number 5, use 2 small pieces of tape to attach your drawing to your styrofoam. Cover as little of your drawing on the front with the tape as possible and let more be on the back as you wrap it around and secure it. You don't want the tape on top of your texture drawing when you're trying to transfer it to the styrofoam. Step number 6, use your pencil to trace over your drawing and it will transfer lightly onto the styrofoam underneath. Step number 7, after you think you're finished tracing, peek underneath your paper to see if you missed any areas before you peel off the tape and paper. If you peel first, you'll never get it lined back up. Step number 9, carefully peel off the tape and drawing. If you're too rough, you'll tear your styrofoam. After you peel the tape and the paper off, you will see that your image has transferred lightly to the styrofoam. Step number 10, take your pencil and retrace the lines gently on the styrofoam. This will press the lines in a bit deeper, just not too hard, or you'll poke a hole through the foam, and we don't want that. The nice thing about using a pencil is you can see exactly what you've traced and what you have not, so when it's finished it looks something like this. Now we're going to pause the video here and wait until day 2 for the printing steps. Alright, once you have finished your tracing of your animal's face and texture on the styrofoam, you need to make sure your name is on the back and your class ID, which mine, I just wrote 5th since obviously I'm not in a class. And you're going to need to collect a couple of things. You're going to need 1 tray for your ink, 1 brayer. You're going to share this with your shoulder partner so that we don't have 20-something things to wash at the end. You're also going to need a couple of pieces of paper to print on. These are about 4.5 by 6 inches. It will make it where this will fit across here but have a little bit of extra space at the top and the bottom, maybe a pinch of space on the sides here, which is fine. I also grabbed over in the painting area on the bottom shelf of the purple shelving area, I grabbed a piece of newspaper because this does get messy and it's just kind of nice to have something to lay it on so it's not all over your seat sheet because then it may get wet and stuck to that. So you're going to gather those things up. The teacher will give you some ink. This is just a block printing ink. It is water soluble, which just means you'll be able to wash this very easily with water at the sink, and you can use a sponge. Soap would be fine too, but it will wash off easily. You're going to get the teacher to give you just a little bit of ink, about, I don't know, maybe a teaspoon or so. And you're going to start to roll this. Now, one thing you need to know is if you only go back and forth and don't pick up the brayer, you can see that this brayer, it doesn't actually roll all the way around. So you have to pick it up as you're rolling, okay? okay? And then, of course, as you start out, you're also going to need to turn it. You can turn the tray or you can turn the direction of the brayer, but you're gonna need to roll it the other direction so that you're getting it even across the whole brayer. Now, I don't know if you can tell this on the video very well, but there's like really long streaks of ink here and there's not much here. That tells me that there's way more ink over here than there is on the other side. So I'm gonna turn my tray again and ink the other side. And you can also kind of tell on the tray when it starts to have sort of that smaller lines on there, then you know that it's more evenly. Remember to pick this up as you're rolling though still. And then you're going to take your styrofoam and you're going to ink your styrofoam, okay? Now anywhere that you thickened up the lines, oops, and I got my finger already. Anywhere that you thickened the lines, like around my eyes, I colored in the irises of the eye, and I also thickened it up where the nostrils of my bird were. So those are places that you want to think of making sure you do before you actually start the ink. And then you're going to take your piece of printing paper, and I'm going to scoot this over just to make sure it's still on the camera. And you're going to take your inked piece. Now you got to be careful because you don't want to put your fingers on this side and pull any ink off of the top here. You're going to line this up with your paper where you want it. So about right there, and then you just really need to give it a good rub. Like rub it down, press it to the paper. We're not like hitting it or banging on it because that's not gonna do anything really. It's gonna just press in one spot. You wanna actually make sure you're pressing the entire plate really well. So you're gonna push this down and rub it good. And then after you've done that, you can take a little peek and look in there and make sure that it's coming off before you completely pull it off, okay? It looks like it is coming off pretty well. So you can take your styrofoam off, and then there's your first print. Now we can see in a few places where it might have come off a little lighter. I might not have had the ink rolled quite as thickly there. Maybe I didn't press as much. So we'll make a second one. And while I was printing, the other partner could be rolling the ink. So once you have made probably 2 prints, you're going to need some more ink on your tray. So you'll just raise your hand and you'll get a little bit more. So go ahead and re-ink the brayer and then re-ink the styrofoam. It's a little bit tricky to tell how thick you're getting it on here because it's white, which matches obviously the styrofoam. But you're going to make sure, again, you kind of pick this up as well, because if you look closely at your brayer, you can kind of see where the ink's been pulled off and where it's still left on because of the divots in your styrofoam, okay? So put another good coat of ink on there and then lay your paper back down. You gotta be a little careful about where you're working because I've got a lot of ink. That's kind of why I had moved it over before, but for the purpose of your video, I'm trying to not move this stuff around a bunch on you. All right, so the second one, again, make sure you rub it nice and firm. You gotta really press it onto that paper so that ink will adhere to the paper. And this one may come off a little lighter since it's the second printing, but it may not. I don't know, we'll just see. So then once you've pressed everything well, take a sneak peek, and looks like I might have missed a spot there, so that's why you don't want to pull it off all the way to start, because once you pull it off, you don't line it back up. It just doesn't work. Yeah, that looks pretty good actually. I'm gonna rub just a bit more right there and then pull it off, and there's my second print. Okay, so you're gonna make yourself at least 4 prints, and what you'll want to do is number it. So this was 1 out of 4. That was the first one. This is the second one out of 4, and I'm gonna sign my name to my print. You could also, if you want, write the title over here. So I'm gonna put Eagle on my print. And when you look at an artist print, a lot of times the ones that are the lower numbers are the ones that are the most valuable. They may get where this gets kind of gummed up and has a lot of ink that once they start to make multiple prints, it doesn't quite come out as nice or as clearly. But sometimes artists will make hundreds of prints. Like you could find, you know, 48 out of 200 prints that were made. So that's one thing that you might want to know, just because you may be a collector someday, or at least see them in a gallery or an art museum and wonder what in the world these numbers are. So the bottom number is how many prints they made, and the number above is what number in that order it was made. So that's why that number is there. All right, now as far as cleanup goes, you will be able to easily fit your 4 prints on your seat sheet. You won't be able to clip them all on, but you can set them all on here along with your styrofoam, and then the other 2 would fit here, okay? And then this piece of paper that you use to put on top of that, you can toss that or keep that, that's up to you. I just had kept it, so I'll have it for an example in the future. Your newspaper is probably going to be pretty dirty, so you can just fold it up and throw it in the trash. Whoever is done printing first, when the other person is done rolling their ink on at the very end, and while they're printing their last one, you can take this to the sink and wash and dry these and put them back on the shelf. They'll be on the shelf that's under the white and black clock, on that gray bookshelf. If there's like a bunch of people at the sink, then art assistants can just take over and wash. There are also white pencils in this container over on the counter where all the other drawing materials are, but these will be found underneath the, it's under the markers, so you'll see them over there. And I will probably put a label on here that says white colored pencils, so you'll be able to find them pretty quickly. This will go on the drying rack, okay? And then if you got any ink on your hands or on the table, grab a washcloth and make sure you clean your hands first, and then wipe the table if it happens to have anything on it, okay? And then you will be finished with those.